Hi, guys. Welcome to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. This is Vevna Forrow. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, guys. So previously on the podcast, I discussed Substack and how some lit mags and journals are using it essentially as their headquarters or home base. Yeah, it is quite an innovative publication platform, for online. And it's a great way to stay in touch with those who follow, the lit mag or journal or press even, communicate updates, announcements, things like that. So yeah, check it out. Listen back to that episode. I mentioned some other, options, if Substack perhaps doesn't work out to maybe look at. And yeah, everyone has their like preference, in terms of ease of use and stuff like that. So yeah. Also, I'll mention before we dive into this episode, I've been updating the descriptions beneath the episodes, putting some updated links, resources, and additional notes that I may have missed in the episode. So check those out from time to time. I added and updated quite a few episodes back. And yeah, I hope that helps you guys. So for this episode, I mentioned I wanted to cover submission management systems. So I guess the question we'll phrase here is basically, what are the alternatives to Submittable, or what submission management systems are out there for lit mags, journals, and presses that are perhaps, cost friendly or not so cost friendly, yeah, so this question, I want to cover it predominantly because at Dippity Lit Mag and Dippity Press, we are actually moving off of Submittable to Subfolio, and I will cover, both a little bit, a why, but let's retrace and go back here, retrace the steps of how I started Dippity Lit Mag and what we used, initially. I may have mentioned this earlier, but for those who listen the first time, just take some time to do so. So in 2022, I started Dippity Lit Mag, and I just started using, email basically to communicate with others. I did set up a Google form, they're free to set up. They're not, however, the most, I think, friendly or that great in terms of like a mass quantity of submissions and juggling that. But it works well. If you're starting a lit mag or journal, you need something quick and easy to set up. Google Forms, I think Microsoft Forms exist. We still use a sort of form integration system with our ticket system at Dippity for a help desk, but it could be applied to other things. There's things like fill out forms. They have a free cap. Some cool features there. Jot form is another one. I think there's very few ones out there that have strictly a PayPal, functionality for transactions and payments and stuff like that. But there are limitations and free caps on a lot of platforms, right? So, yeah, I've seen some people mention they've used like similar things to Smartsheet and some other stuff. I haven't really dived into that a whole bunch, but I'm familiar with that a little bit. And what else? There are some other form systems out there. I'm not going to mention all of them in existence, but I've seen some lit mags and journals have a built-in, intake form on their website that gets sent to an email address, and they, review submissions that way. So, those are fairly low cost. And again, most places have a free cap. If you're going to intake submissions via email, it's not going to be costly at all. The only problem with doing that is that, it's very hard to organize, categorize things, and it's really tough for a team to be involved in that. Of course, you can adjust, share permissions, inbox stuff, forward things, but I think that's really messy, and, setting up inbox permissions and stuff, and, shared inboxes are possible, obviously, but I think it's a bit tough, if you ever become a lit mag or journal that has several thousand or several hundred submissions, right, to juggle. That can be quite a mess in email. It's really possible for you to do it, but it's very, very tricky to organize. In emails, they have storage caps, right? So you might end up paying, a storage fee or something for more storage on stuff. So, yeah. Anyways, so we started off with Google Forms. Then I wanted something a little bit more, similar to Submittable, but very low cost. So I looked at Oleada. That's Oleada. So there was no fee to set it up or anything like that. And it's a very clean system, very, very simple There are still quite a few lit magazine journals using that. I took a peek at it over. Still has, I think, the beta phase testing on it. I know the last time I got an email from them several years ago, not several years ago, but a few years ago, they mentioned they were looking to add some features possibly, or to adjust things, or I'm not sure where that is at quite yet. But I know I see quite a few additional publisher accounts in there now. So, it's still being actively used quite a bit by others. I think the thing I didn't like, I felt like the interface was a little bit limitative, and had some gaps there that I would have liked to see an improvement. Like team collaboration wise, I didn't feel like a lot of those features. Obviously, you can do a shared, account and stuff, or probably, or something like a login. But I think that's kind of messy and hard. So yeah, I felt like it wasn't suitable for that. As of 2025 still and stuff, I'm not sure. I don't know if a whole lot's changed or anything compared to back then, which a couple years ago again. But yeah, it definitely doesn't have all the same features as Submittable does. But if you need something that is, similar to it, low cost, I think they mentioned, I could be wrong, $15 a month or something. I'm not sure if there's a charge or if it's free up to a number amount. I don't remember. I can't remember their pricing or plan. But obviously, check that out. I think that was the one alternative I found that was much better than just using Google Forms, and had, some submission management system functionality. I eventually decided to move off of Oleada over to Submittable. Now, Submittable, right? So obviously, if you don't have the CLMP membership and you're an organization or, a company, even, they're going to, be charging like $10,000 a year, is literally, several $1,000s, for your plan. It can be quite costly if you don't have that community of literary magazines and journals, and presses, membership, CLMP. I think I added a J in there. But yeah, so I would say it's totally worth it to do the CLMP membership if you want to use Submittable. With Submittable, our bill is about, on the basic plan, I think it's like $29 a month. And our membership with that in total is probably slightly under $500 a year. And they have several features that you can, upgrade to, but there's a cost, obviously, right? I know some lit magazine journals that are larger in, size and in terms of volume, they are running into issues because they want to add more readers to their team, but on their plan, it'd be so costly, to do those things. There are some features in Submittable that we simply do not have access to, the ability to use, because we're on the basic plan. And obviously I can't afford to add any of the other bells and whistles of Submittable at all. But it's fairly reasonable, consider that. And I just wish that the workflows didn't really fit our team. I didn't really like the workflow functionality. Now in Submittable, there's you can do internal notes to team members. You can do, I believe they have a thumbs up, thumbs down functionality. But again, the workflow, that I feel like it's not that user-friendly to set up workflow forms for your team and stuff. It wasn't, for me anyway, it wasn't fast and efficient to do so. But I really love the labeling system of Submittable. I love how it's, organized, and it keeps everything, track of, right? You have different statuses, right? In progress, accepted, declined, withdrawn. And yeah, so I think it's very easy, right? And the color coding, I really like that about Submittable. And so yeah, on our plan, let me get it for you guys here, because as of 2025, so let's see here. I think on Submittable, if we go back here, so yeah, it's interesting because, when I go into the plan, the CLMP, Community of Literary Magazines and Presses, on the plan, it says on the back end $39 a month, but we're actually paying, $29 So I think that's because we don't have some of the other upgraded features possibly and stuff like that. But anyways, it's there's that, and that the other plan here that's on the back end is showing like $39 a month, 6 forms, unrestricted submissions, unrestricted paid submissions, batch email, 5 fields per form. And then annual says 290 per year. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So, we're averaging, again, I think about, slightly under $500 a year for, our membership and Submittable payments. The thing about Submittable that I don't like is that there is a restriction on how many buckets and category calls you can have open each month. So I mentioned 6 forms, right? That's 6 categories or buckets you're limited to. And that's really limiting, considering some lit mags and journals are open all year round, and they want to have more calls than that open totally. And we do at Dippity. So that's part of the reason why I feel like it makes sense to move. And also Submittable takes quite a bit away from, let's say there are tip jars, or some lit mags and journals take donations or tips, through Submittable, and they take quite a bit away from that. And I think that's kind of messed up. But, the platforms have bills to pay themselves, right? And everything's costly. I just think that's a little bit too high. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but yeah. Other than that, Submittable can be hard, for a lot of lit mags and journals, cost-wise, to maintain, because things are usually very tight. There's been, I'll share with you guys, times I've been, behind on plan payments and stuff, but I do the best I can. I've, always have done what I can, and it's tricky. It's tricky because it is kind of expensive. There are some platforms I looked at prior to Submittable that I really liked, but I know quite a few. I don't know why, but for some reason I see a lot of flash fiction, sci-fi places that I came across. More than 2 or 3 were using Moksha. Moksha. Now they have the thing, I wouldn't have chosen Oleada per se initially. I was looking at Moksha, before Submittable. I believe Moksha, is that how you pronounce it? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But yeah, I think it was just the cost was kind of high for me. And they have that 6 submission type cap too, category type thing. And it's $75 a month, and it's kind of tough. They have like $415 annually, $750 annually. It can get really costly, with some of these other submission management systems. But, I've heard good things about Moksha, or I see quite a few use that one too. But yeah, Submittable is widely known. The really cool thing about Submittable is the discovery page, right? A lot of poets and writers find their calls, for flash fiction, short stories there. When a call is reaching a closure, it goes to, the deadline section, closing soon, and the discovery page of Submittable. That's where you can find a lot of calls I mentioned on an episode, right? The discover page. If you just type that in, Submittable discover page in a search engine, you'll find it. You can see all kinds of calls in there, even sometimes volunteer applications and, calls for volunteer readers, different opportunities there even. Some places use it for intaking, job applications and stuff for lit mags, journals, and presses. So, yeah. Anyways, we are moving to Subfolio, yeah? So, again, it's not so much about cost. I think it's more so that I feel there are some limitations of Submittable that, there are a lot of things we can't upgrade to, and it doesn't make sense to really stay on a platform that is limiting us to 6 form fields. And, let's say we want to add, 4, 5, 6 more readers one day. It's very limited over that because, I can't afford to add more seats beyond that, if it costs more to add beyond our plan, right? Yeah, so I think on the back end of Submittable, so it's, it says interesting, unrestricted team members, but I don't think that's necessarily true because when you go, and it's confusing. Also, some things on Submittable I'll mention too. So when you go on the back end to manage your team, I'm Submittable. And obviously, I'm not sharing my screen with you guys or anything like that. But I will mention, like, when you go to invite someone and it says your organization has 5 of 8 available in your plan, you can add a maximum of 3. So that's the confusing part, I think, there. I don't know if that, the wording there. So there is a cap on our plan on how many we can have. So let's say we wanted to have like 10, 12, or 13, right? I think then we would have to pay an additional fees for that, or our plan would get expensive right beyond that, and it wouldn't be, I don't think, necessarily covered in our membership plan. So that's the thing that's kind of messed up. Yeah, so anyways, I know there was an email, another Lit Magnet Journal Press wanted to add more team members, but they said it was down to cost, that they couldn't, or they were having issues with that. So yeah, all in all, the permissions on the back end of Submittable are not very customizable. You can't drill down and say, I want this team member to have, this access, but eliminate this stuff. You can't, as of 2025, so you can't, edit anything. You can't have any customization there. It's just check boxes, right? On this level, on this level. I think that is not a great design. The 5 levels that they have and things like that. I think that is very tough, because there's been times I wanted just some team members, for training purposes to, not quite have permissions to do some things, right, quite yet. And there's no way for me to customize that or eliminate that without dropping them down, way down to the lowest level. So yeah, Subfolio is great. I think I haven't dived into it a whole bunch yet, but we are moving to it. I've, gotten into the system, and the developer of it and founder, Liam, it was really great, answered all of my questions, and really took the time to ensure that we have, this essentially the same setup that we had over at Submittable, our regular fields and stuff like that. Thing about Submittable is, when you have like different levels or tier structure like we do, like first time subs are more free, and you don't use the exact required amount, right? And, there's a different fee for second time or more. It puts your call, and I see this happening in other Lit magazine journals, it puts your call in the free section, no fee. Although there are different types of fees, it doesn't state that, which is confusing. I wish they would change that. And if you go on the Discover page of Submittable, you'll see what I'm saying. If you look at some of the free calls and you come across some that actually, when you drill into the submission to submit to them, and then you come across there is actually a fee, a choice, choose your some Lit magazine journals have it where choose the $5 option, choose the $10 option, choose what you want to pay what you want. Some have that set up besides the first time or more free, and I think that's kind of messed up. So what we had to do, we had to put a fee waiver option in there for poets and writers, disabled writers, and things like that, because it's kind of tough. But yeah, anyways, we're moving to Subfolio, and I think Subfolio does a good job with specifying that, the minimum, and then the, in their Discover page and stuff. So, and yeah, there's a lot of other really great features. I'm not going to cover every single little thing about, Submittable and Subfolio, but I will say I prefer Subfolio for the customization in terms of like team member permissions. There's ability to drill down in there and really fine edit that. And there's unlimited, on the plan payment we're on currently, it's about the same. I think Subfolio even has a $10 option as well, but I don't think it has, the unlimited portion and stuff. On the free submissions, I think it's up to 100 as of 2025. It does say unlimited paid submissions, but not unlimited free submissions. So we're going on the, $29 a month plan. And then we'll have unlimited free submissions, unlimited count seats, unlimited categories. So we won't have, the cap of 6 buckets or anything like that, like Submittable has, which is really nice. I think there's a lot more breathing room for, having open calls, as many as we want, essentially. There's not going to be a lot or nothing at all in terms of what's taken away from tips, that submitters leave to us, right? There's no fee, you can put tip jar. You can really collaborate in Subfolio. I think I really like that aspect of it, like the team feature, and that I felt like in Submittable something could be improved there with like team communications and stuff. But I did like the reminders and alerts of Submittable, absolutely. Subfolio still has it's a fairly new, some of the features and functionality, but I think Liam's done a really phenomenal job with it. I'm not a developer per se, but I did tech support for some developers and some in the tech space before, so I know a lot really goes into starting something from scratch. I just have basic coding knowledge. I'm rusty though in terms of web development and stuff, but I'm trying to figure out, guys, how to code in a search functionality, a separate one on each page currently, by the way, so I'll see if I can try and figure that out. But anyways, I think it's really cool to see these different submission management systems and development of them and the different features of them. Subfolio to me has some really cool things, I think, with how you can communicate again with team members. So how you use Discord or Slack or something, I feel like that team collaboration is really there essentially in it, and I think that's really nice about it. How you can mention others and score and rate things, and so a lot of lit magazine journals and presses, they usually have a thumbs up or thumbs down or scoring system or a vote of yes or no, essentially. We're going to stick to our scoring system at Dippity. We don't share the scores with submitters, obviously, but we do share, some additional notes and feedback to them from time to time, but never the scores. Our scoring system is typically, some places use a scale of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, some places just say a thumbs up, thumbs down, and usually, some places have multiple rounds. That's what we do at Dippity. So it has to get through 3 levels of readers. And to make it fair, I feel like, again, if it goes through one set of eyes, it's not, it's kind of a bit tough. So I feel like it's better to have like a collaborative input, from a team of readers on the submission, to say, this is what I really liked about it. This is what, could maybe be improved. And sometimes we are totally able, when we have feedback options open or we have spare time, sometimes, or submissions that were near close acceptance, I would totally give additional notes and feedback on, why, it didn't quite make the cut of us getting acceptance. We can't do it for all submissions, of course, but absolutely try to leave a note saying, hey, I really love this poem, particularly out of the group. And, anyways, Subfolio is cool. And who knows, in the next year or two, I think with every submission management system over time, sort of evolves, a little bit, adds new features and improvements down the road. So, I think it is a very clean user interface. It's easy to use. It's not super complicated. With Submittable, there's like a lot, again, bells and whistles we don't even get to use because, you have to upgrade and stuff. Like with audio submissions, we always have to, like, on our basic plan, like, download those and stuff. And, we can't easily do some things like award payments out to others and stuff. I mean, it's not the end of the world with that. Obviously, we can do that outside of the submission management system and stuff, but it's good to have everything centralized, right, in your submission management system to do everything from there rather than go outside here or there. I have to do this, right, So, yeah, I'd highly recommend you check out Subfolio. There are a lot of other features I didn't cover on it. If you're someone who likes categorizing things, labeling things, Subfolio has that. And the Discover page, I think, will be really great, as more lit magazine journals and presses join, a submission management system, more calls will be found there from others, too. I think that's really nice. And, So obviously it's a learning curve for any platform submission system you use. I think second to that, quite a few out there besides Submittable, I see, and even as a submitter myself, as a poet, I've interacted with Duosuma, a Duosuma, which is basically through Duotrope. I know a lot of poets and writers and artists are familiar with that submission management and discovery directory. So Duotrope has Duosuma. That's their submission management system. So I haven't, used that myself as managing or intaking submissions, but I think they essentially have, the same thing. There's ability to have tags, ratings, and windows for open submission periods and stuff, and to set up, custom questions and stuff like that. And yeah, so I don't think they have a limit. I think you can have caps on there. Like Submittable has a feature to cap submissions. A lot of places do. I think that's what's great about submissions management systems. Some of them, Oleata didn't really have that at all. To put a cap on submissions so you don't get like 900 or 10,000, right? You can set a cap, let's say, of 100 for the month, or 400, 500, right? I think with Submittable, we had we're nowhere near, we were nowhere near when we started, I think they give you a certain number of free submissions for the month. Was it 500 for Submittable? Anyways, yeah, it's cool to have submission management systems that have unlimited, no caps there on the amount of buckets you can have, the amount of calls. And I think Subfolio, again, does great there. So yeah, I'd recommend checking out Subfolio. Check out Duosuma too if you're, looking at ones to choose. Oleata is pretty good too, if you're not looking for something anywhere near, a lot of money and you want to just, something very basic. But if you have a team of readers or different roles, you might want to look at, again, Subfolio. I haven't used Duosuma a bunch or anything like that, but I have heard good things about it from multiple people. So yeah. Some other ones that I'd come across, I don't know if they're still, I'm not sure about what happened to them. I think they still exist per search, but I think Stack Submission Manager, was that it? Stack, STACK Submission Manager. I haven't used them, but I remember coming across them on social media, and yeah, I think I recall on their site, when I checked a couple days ago, it said, quoting this from their site, if a publisher has 200 submissions the next month, it would pay the maximum of $10. So they take a certain amount from your overall submissions, right? And, paid submissions. And, yeah. I don't really think it says, actually, I don't think it said paid submissions. I think it said just like submissions in general. So I think when you don't have any submission calls open or you're not using it, you pay $0. So I think that's cool. But the part about where you have a certain number of submissions and they take for 200 submissions, they take a maximum of $10. So I think that's I'm not a huge fan of that structure. And yeah, I like sort of having a set fee for the month and stuff like that, not always per the number of submissions. I think that structure is a bit tough. Anyways, yeah, they have some other stuff, like a base fee and stuff per submission. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Again, numbers and fees, plans can change with platforms sometimes. So this is just as of 2025 of May. Yeah. Stack Submission Manager was another one. I know I've used as a submitter myself, Submission Manager, and that's literally just Submission Manager, but it's abbreviated the name, so it's SUBMGR. I don't know how others get accounts to set, or I'm not sure how others got accounts to Submission Manager or publishers for that intake system. I'm not really sure. Because I only ever came across the demo of it and stuff, the demo of the Submission Manager. And then I'm not sure. I think they have a help line. I think they're still in use. So I think you can, reach out to obviously any submission management system, right? The help email address. There's one there, contact the admin. It looks like it's still going strong. Submission Manager, SUBMGR. Has a 2025, copyright symbol on the bottom. So yeah, I think, you obviously could reach out to the admin if you're interested in that submission management system. I'm not sure what the pricing is like or how they take submissions, or if it's free or how that works. I'm not sure. I haven't used that one at all. And so Submission Manager, SUMB, and I'll link all these in the description so you can check them out. Obviously, there are others out there I haven't used. Again, a very simple way to start your Lit Mag journal, for the first time, is to use a Google form or an intake form. Tons out there. Again, fill out Jot form. I've heard some things about Jot form in terms of, customer service is important, getting help with the submission management system. So I'm not too familiar with that, but I've seen things like with Jot form come up with others and complaints and stuff. So I haven't used it a bunch. I remember I tried it briefly. Mainly I was looking for something for a help desk, I think, and I didn't end up using it. I went with fill out forms for that. We haven't really used it a bunch because of our relaunch and some other stuff, rearranging with Dippity Lit Mag. But one day we'll start it up. The whole intention was to, create a channel to help writers and poets like this podcast, right? To ask questions, to create a ticket with us. And to do that, we were thinking about using it for feedback and separating that out. But I think it's easier when everything's, in the submission management system itself. Submittable, we intake feedback requests too. And with Subfolio, I think we'll do that as well, feedback requests and stuff. So, yeah, I feel like Subfolio is really easy to set up. Oleata wasn't too bad. Submittable, again, wasn't too bad. I just had struggled quite a bit with the team setup, I think, on Submittable, like the workflow forms and stuff, and that it just was confusing to me, and I never really liked it. So I ended up really leveraging labeling, like a labeling system to mark, rounds of review, the statuses of stuff, whether we heard back from a poet or writer, and whether it is for a specific call. Labels help you retrace things from several years back, because sometimes, let's say anthologies are put together, or another issue, down the road, or you need to, nominate poets' work, right? You have to really keep tabs on that. So it's a good idea to have a labeling or organization system of some kind. And honestly, it's not too bad, guys. Some submission management systems have a boatload of features, and some are very, stripped down, I'd say. You have, your basic needs, right? You essentially just need something that works, that intakes submissions. And I feel like Oleata really was tough because it didn't really have, at the time, that ability to have, tips and donations even, or any sort of paid submissions option in there. So a lot of the times what I see lit mags and journals do, they said, and we used to do this briefly with Google Forms, right? So outside of it, I set up one of those, buy me a coffee pages, and for poets who were submitting the second time to us, or more, they would buy us a coffee and then submit there, instead of just, because Oleata and Google Forms, they don't have that functionality at all. For, tips and submission fees, right? There's not a ability to do that. So I think that's the downside of some form systems. They don't have that built-in, submission fee option if you're going to charge fees. Obviously, I hate fees. I would prefer not to charge fees. But the cool thing is, on submission management systems, like Submittable, Subfolio, I'm not sure if you can do this with DuoSumma, but add a checkbox in there, or a fee waiver option. Subfolio has an integration for keeping track of fee waivers and stuff. So I think that's really cool. You can also do like a checkbox like we did with Dippity, and create an option for that, right? And most poets are very honest about that. Our disabled writer fee waivers and all of that stuff. I totally hate fees, so I absolutely we try it over our categories to give that option for chapbooks once per window, and so hopefully one day we can eliminate fees or something completely, or start paying writers for their work. That'd be great. But I think if you're going to start a lit mag or journal, you absolutely need a submission management system of some kind. yeah, so it could be a form system. Again, you could look up like form systems that have a Stripe or PayPal integration. There are quite a few out there. The only one I came across that I really liked was, fill out forms, and some sites, again, have an option or capability to have a built-in form integration, or there's some platforms out there that let you do that. And they're not too bad to set up. Again, you just have like free caps and stuff, or you might have to do a paid plan. But yeah, submission management systems can be very costly, so you want to be careful. But I think Subfolio is really nice. They do have a lower plan again, like $10 per month as of 2025 May. So that's a great starting plan for like a small lit mag or journal or press. I think that's great. I think I saw, and I think, Subfolio is part of, I believe I'm pronouncing this right. If I'm pronouncing wrong, sorry. Damon, DMS, you'll see that like on their site. So there are other like integrations and functionalities there. I think I saw something with Ingram Spark. I have to ask more about that. So there are some pretty neat features that Subfolio has, like, and some things as an part of Demon, that it's tied to. So I have to look at that Ingram integrations, some of the other integrations I saw, and ask about those. I don't know, what that entails, or the ability to use those, but I think that's really cool. If you scroll down on the website, of the pricing Subfolio page, which is Damon's site, I think it's damondms.com. But yeah, so yeah, it mentions integrations for like Shopify, Ingram, Spark, some other stuff there. I haven't really looked at that much, but I said much, guys. Oh gosh, I haven't really looked at that, but that's really cool. I think that's neat. Anything that streamlines, the publication process, or has some customizability there, I really love, the abilities to customize permissions. That's what I really like about Subfolio, and the team collaboration features in there. And, how do you communicate with team members? So, you have to really dive into a platform to, get a feel for it and see if you like it. Everyone has their preference. Obviously, Submittable, there are tons. I don't know the number of lit mags and journals on Submittable as of today, and presses or other organizations using it. Obviously, it's a lot because you see the calls in there and stuff, and it's widely used and known. But I feel like there are, a lot of things that frustrated me, I think, with Submittable in terms of like the platform that, if you ever use a platform like, oh, I wish we could change this, I wish there was that, I wish we, could do more here, I feel like then that platform is restrictive to what you're trying to do and is kind of limiting. But Submittable is a great submission management system, no doubt. It's cool, I think it's great for organization, but I just feel, again, the forms, the amount of categories you can have open, the team, features weren't for me. I felt like, in terms of that, I did like the internal note functionality and stuff. We heavily used that at Dippity. And, there are some other things, but obviously those are the main ones I just wanted to point out. And, so there are reporting tools, with every submission management system, and that can help you with like, monitoring your, trying to keep track of like your acceptance rates that I mentioned on past episode or two, a few episodes back, and to track your metrics and stuff. Not all have that. Like Oleata didn't have a dashboard or metric system at all. I don't know if Duosuma has that. I'm going to assume so, or some sort of tracking on the back end, because they've been around for quite a while, with Duotrope, and Duosuma. So yeah, a lot of options out there. It can be tough, but, if you're looking for something low cost, or zero down to put down, you could just start a form, right? You could. But I feel like emails and forms, they can be kind of messy, to juggle. So highly recommend you check out Subfolio. We're going to move to it, and it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun anyway. I love learning about new systems, and just, I felt like with Submittable, again, there were things that were like, I was just saying, I thought about, hoping to change things, with Submittable in there, like some things that just bothered me, right? So I think that if there's anything like that, in another submission management system, checks all the boxes you're looking for, majority of them, then it is totally beneficial. And our costs aren't going to go up at all, with the move or anything like that to a new submission management system. So that's great. Subfolio does have a lower plan, like $10 a month, and, up to, I think, a cap of 100 free submissions. Things can change, numbers can change perhaps in the future, I don't know, but I think for most part it'll stay the same. As of 2025, I hope other lit magazine journals try it out. And, I think it becomes much harder, when you're like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in a submission management system, or several years into it, and you have your archive, right? So the thing with submission management systems, I didn't mention, but right, for record purposes, acceptances and stuff like that are, typically archived. And the thing about that, the longer you're on a system, right, and, let's say you want to move or something comes up, let's say the submission management system changes all of a sudden, or something happens or it goes down, right? You're going to lose that archive, right? So the longer you stay on a platform, whatever it may be, it's going to be harder for you to get off. We've only been on Submittable, for less than 3 years, not even 3 years. So it's not going to be that huge of a deal for us to move, right? We're still very early as a lit mag journal and press. I started Dippy Lit Mag in 2022, and it's now 2025. So we don't have we're not going to lose a bunch of things, our archive, of course, we're not going to have that, but it's not a huge deal. We're still very early. So I feel like it's harder for some of the lit magazine journals that have been around for quite a while to make a move, because they have all of their stuff in Submittable, for instance, and they don't have it backed up anywhere else, right? Like all of their, all of the things they've tracked over the course of years, the publications and everything's in Submittable. It is a good idea, though, as a lit mag journal press, to have like a backup option of, your issues and stuff and things like that, and other things like that. But even the publications, right, the formatting of it and things like that. If you're moving to a new submission management system, there's going to be a transition window where there's a quiet cricket window, because you're trying to move over, right, and get everything together. Make sure you have what you need, because there are nomination events throughout the year. So you want to make sure you have, Best of the Net, they require that you input the contact information for the event, right? So they can, I think they notify if they're nominated, the author of the poem or the writer. So, in submission management systems, you have to have those contact addresses for some nomination events, or even some lit management journals have their own award events. So that's some things you have to think about. There is an option that I really love about Submittable and also Subfolio, is that you can do concealed reads. I forgot this. I'm going to add this on really quick. I know this is a very long episode, but so concealed reads, I think that's so important, to conceal the cover letter of the submitter, right? Their name and information. And typically at Dippity, what we do, towards the end, only I, see that. And then, it's important because there have been some, flagged addresses in the community, some spammy and plagiarism, addresses in the lit mag world. So it's important that we're able to report things like that we see, at Dippity. We've gotten some spammy submissions from time to time. Someone was sending us some random, I mentioned this in an episode maybe or a while back, but some weird LinkedIn screenshots, some weird stuff, random stuff. And sometimes we get some just random photographs and completely devoid of anything what we're looking for a call. And some quite inappropriate stuff as well, I'd say, that we've had to report. So it's so important, yeah, that, there is efficient, Submittable has a customer service team, but I think with Subfolio, I think it's nice that, let's say it be the founder, whatever team, is behind it for the submission management system, that they're communicative, they answer your questions. And, I think it's so important to have a good support system behind whichever submission management system you're using. And, so Subfolio is awesome thus far. We're going to dive into it more. Obviously, it's going to take, it's a learning curve for any new system, but it's not too bad, honestly. I thought it's very easy to get the gist of, for setup and stuff. Really wasn't too bad. So we're almost there. So hopefully we'll be on there in the next, 30 to 60 days and off of Submittable. It's hard to, it's like pulling a Band-Aid off, right? You just got to do it, right? It's hard to leave something you've used for a while and then move over to something new. But I think it'll be worth it overall. Less of our tips will be taken away and stuff, and we'll have more calls open throughout the year. And I think that's so beneficial because we've been restrictive to 6 a time. And, we have a lot of spoken word calls. We usually have to close early for our print calls and stuff and juggle that and space that out. So, and we'll be able to add more readers and volunteer staff, to our team without having to worry about, any plan restriction there. I think that's nice. So yeah, a lot of breathing room overall with Subfolio. I really like that. And it can be stressful moving to a new system, but I think, Liam has done a wonderful job, I'll mention, by the way, answering all my questions and really ensuring that we have what we need and that everything is, addressed. So yeah, I will perhaps do another, who knows? I haven't done a screen share video in quite some time or anything like that. This is just an audio podcast. So who knows? We may start doing some screen shares, some video stuff down the road if others enjoy this podcast. But it's mainly just an audio diary of my experience running a Lit Mag journal, and also as a submitter myself, as a poet, as a writer, things I run into, and just sharing my experience. So yeah, I will link all of the ones I mentioned below for you guys to check out. So I didn't mention all of the features of each submission management system or anything like that. I haven't used every one in existence, but check it out. Again, the CLMP membership, maybe I'll do an episode on it. A lot of benefits to that membership. You get to stay in the loop on a lot of things in the Lit Mag community and of journals and presses. So I think it is worth it to look into that if you're going to start one. Obviously, it costs money for the membership, but I think, again, that's something also that's worth it. So, I've learned quite a bit from, the email communications and about events. I haven't really gotten a chance to, do a lot of the on-site stuff and opportunities and meetings and stuff like that they have, but I'll maybe cover it later just because of some life events and stuff. And, but I think it's a great membership. Has a lot of, insight into that space and editors exchanging knowledge exchanging. I think that's really beneficial. So yeah, this was a knowledge exchange episode, just sharing, some of the primary reasons why we're moving off of Submittable over to Subfolio. And a lot of the main features I wanted to see are there. So I am ready to go. As soon as we get through this backlog we have, we'll be over on Subfolio, and we'll open up some of our calls at Dippity Lit Mag and Dippity Press again. Probably very slowly though, because we're doing a relaunch. So mostly we've been focusing on online publications and spoken word for a bit. But almost there, guys. So maybe I'll do another episode on how everything goes, on solely Subfolio. But this is just an overall coverage on some of the pros and cons. So it does come down to cost, on a lot of submission management systems. But I really think email is just way too difficult to manage submissions, And so I'd highly recommend you look into, getting a submission management system. Quite a few out there again, and I will link below the ones I talked about. So I hope this episode helped you. And in the next episode, I don't know, it may be a little bit, spaced out. I do these when I can, but we have a backlog and our relaunch, a few other things, and we're moving to Subfolio. So maybe a while before I do any new episodes, but, I have a few other topics, obviously, I can cover. And maybe I'll share some fave lit magazine journals on this podcast too. And and some other things, some other fun stuff. So just know there may be a bit of a space or some gaps there because I'm working on some other stuff. But take care, guys, yeah? P.S., guys, completely forgot to mention templates, right? So the one thing that I really like about some submission management systems, both Submittable, Subfolio, I'm sure some other ones out there, is that they have, templates you can set up, like responses, canned response, right, for sending out acceptance letters, or you can edit the acceptance letter, make it custom, before sending it. And same thing with the decline letter, right? You can edit it, but essentially you can have like the structure of it, so you don't have to retype it each time, but you can add additional notes and things to it, to the submitter. So I think that's really great about submission management systems. Obviously, if you use something like email or, forms, right, you could have your canned response in a, copy pasted over, but that's really troublesome. I feel like it saves time, right, to have all of your templates for every category created and your responses all set up, and also sending back, kickbacks on, when others are expected to hear back from you. I think that's really nice about submission management systems too. So I just wanted to add that, and that's all. Obviously, tons of other features I didn't mention with some of these platforms and submission management systems, but just wanted to add that there. So some things to take in consideration when you're choosing yours. We're going with Subfolio. I just would say Submittable is not bad again, but it definitely has room for improvement. Like every single submission management system out there has, like, again, pluses and minuses, right? You have to go with the one that, suits your budget, suits what you are looking to do. If you have a team of readers and you want to make sure communication is easy, efficient, and not complicated, right? So you need to have some sort of system established on the back end for your team in terms of reviewing submissions and everything. So it's a little bit different for each lit mag and journal, like that whole process on the back end. But, for the most part, I've seen quite a few places, again, have, some sort of scoring system or rating system on submissions. And so take care, guys. And that's all, yeah.